This is the second video in my series of how to read music. There are two words I'd like to talk about. One is pulse and the other is rhythm. Pulse means a steady beat. It could be any speed or tempo. Here's a slower pulse. But it has to be steady. Now, the second word is rhythm. Rhythm is a repeating pattern. Every rhythm has an underlying pulse. The pulse for this rhythm, any rhythm, you can feel the pulse whether it's played or not. I'm going to play the pulse that goes with this rhythm. Here's the rhythm. Here's the pulse. You can hear I'm tapping with my foot, a steady pulse. That particular rhythm happens to have 4 pulses before it repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Different rhythms have different pulses. They don't all have to have 4. Here's one that's in 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Unlike other languages, like English or Spanish or whatever, where you can write as many words as you want on a line, in music, we're told how many notes or how much value has to go on a line or in a bar. On this page here, I have on the top of the page what's known as a staff. It's 5 lines and 4 spaces in between them. That's what we write music on. Here is a piece of paper known as manuscript paper, and this is what you would actually write music on. There are 10 staves on this piece of manuscript paper. So I enlarged the staff so you can see it better on this video. And here the staff is cut into different sections known as bars or measures. They mean the same thing. And you can have as many bars on one line, on one staff, as you like. I happen to put 4 here. Now, as I said, in music we're told what to write in each bar, how much value. And the thing that tells us that is time signature. Time signature consists of one number over another number, and it's always at the beginning of a piece of music. The top number tells you how many pulses are in each bar. The bottom number tells you what note that pulse is. So, let's do an example here. In 2 over 16, in that time signature, we would have 2 pulses per bar, and the 16th note is the pulse. So 2 over 16 means that there are 2 16th notes in each bar. Now it doesn't have to be exactly 2 16th notes. It has to be any combination of notes and or rest that equal exactly 2 16th notes. In another time signature is an example of 7 over 8. In 7/8 time, there are 7 pulses per bar, and the bottom number 8 stands for 8th notes. So in 7/8, there are 7 8th notes per bar, or the equivalent. Most of our music is in 4/4 time. So therefore, most of the time, the top number 4 tells us there are 4 beats or pulses per bar, and the bottom number 4 tells us that they're quarter notes. So in 4/4 time, there are 4 quarter notes per bar, or the equivalent. Now, sometimes it's written 4 over 4, or sometimes, maybe to be clever, I never really got the reason why, but some people write the letter C instead of 4/4 in front of the music. That stands for common time, simply because it's the most common time. 2 over 2 is another time signature that's fairly common. That's called cut time, and it's written either 2 over 2 or C with the line through it, as you can see there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a time signature. An example that I have here, I wrote 4 lines. Each line has 2 bars in the time signature of 3, 4. For today's lesson, we're not going to learn how to play it. That's later on. We're going to learn just about the math, the value in each bar. That's the first step. Once we understand the math of how all of this stuff works, and it's simple math, then later on we can go about reading it. So 3, 4, as we said in our time signature, there are 3 quarter notes per bar, or the equivalent of 3 quarter notes in value. So let's look at it. The first bar is obvious. It's 3 quarter notes. The second bar is a quarter rest and 2 quarter notes. Well, the quarter rest means don't play, but it's still worth 1 quarter. Rests are just as important as notes. They mean don't play, but they still take up time. So that's also in 3 quarter. Here in this bar we have a half note, which equals to 2 quarter notes, and a quarter note. That's our 3rd quarter note. So this bar is also in 3/4. This bar here, we have a dotted half note, and we know that a half note equals 2 quarter notes, and the dot adds 50% to that. Well, 50% of 2 quarter notes is 1 more quarter note. So the dotted half note is in fact equal to 3 quarter notes. In this bar here, we start off with 2 eighth notes. 2 eighth notes equal 1 quarter note in value. Then we have another quarter note. That's our 2nd quarter note. And then we have 4 16th notes, which equal a quarter note. So this bar is in 3/4 time. In this bar, we have a dotted quarter note. A dot increases the value by 50%, as you learned on the previous video. So a quarter note with a dot would equal the regular 2 eighth notes plus 50% more. So it would equal 3 eighth notes. And then we have another eighth note here. So that's 4 eighth notes. And as you know, 4 eighth notes equal the value of 2 quarter notes. And then we have the 3rd quarter note here. In this bar, we start off with a quarter rest. Then we have an eighth rest and an eighth note. Well, again, 2 eighths equal the value of a quarter. Even though it's a rest and an eighth note, they're still eighths. So the 2 eighths, that's our 2nd quarter, and then here's our 3rd quarter. So this bar is also in 3/4 time. And in this bar, we have 4 16th notes, which equal 1 quarter. We have 2 16ths and an eighth. And if we do our math, 2 16ths and 1 eighth, which equals 2 16ths. So that figure here equals the value of 4 16ths, which equals our 2nd quarter note. And there is our 3rd quarter. So every bar here is in 3/4 time. One little point I'd like to make, which we'll get more involved with later when we learn how to actually read. Right now, as I said, we're just doing the math. It's very important to understand that first. But when you're reading, if a note has more counts than 1, like this particular dotted half note is equal to 3 quarters, you only play 1. What I mean by play is you attack the 1. Any note, no matter how many counts it gets, only gets 1 attack. So this note is starting on 1 and it takes up the 2nd and 3rd quarter. You don't hit 3 times. Any note, regardless of how many counts it gets, only gets hit. It only gets the attack 1 time. That concludes this video. I'll see you on the next one.